Are you tired of making horrible hires or terrified of making a mistake for a very key role you need to make? We understand it and we get you. That's why we developed the Hiring Process Coach. It's a process to make sure you are getting the right people in the right seats every time. Hi, I'm Cindy Gay from the Metiss Group. And as behavior experts at work, we are passionate about making sure we put processes in to give you more predictable results. Hiring doesn't have to feel like rolling the dice, and too many times it does. It doesn't make it any easier when you go to a traditional search firm where they bring you tons of people, but then what do you do with them? How do you know if any of those are any good or if it's just not the least sick fish, but they were fishing in a contaminated pond? So let's go through the details of the Hiring Process Coach to make sure you understand the 4 phases in detail that will make sure you're hiring the outstanding person you need every time. In the Hiring Process Coach, the definition phase is what kicks everything off. It is the foundation of everything we do. And if you get that right, everything else is a piece of cake and just follows along smoothly. We start off by giving the leader, that's the person to whom your new hire is going to report, a very short leadership assessment. It's 2 sciences, but it gives us an idea of how this person's leadership style is being perceived. The reason that's important is once we get into the definition phase and we build out a job scorecard and we build out the ideal person to do that job in your culture, we have to keep in mind the type of person they're going to be reporting to. If you have a very assertive, strong, domineering boss, then to put a shrinking violet in there means that that poor person is going to get squashed like a grape. But if we put somebody in who's just as headstrong, just as stubborn, the 2 of them are going to be going at it like crazy. So while we're not looking for the antithesis or we're not looking for the exact, we need to at least be able to keep that leadership style in place as we build out that avatar, the ideal person. As we go through the details of the Hiring Process Coach, anytime you see an underline in any of the individual activities means that there's going to be a sample for you to click on and explore in much greater detail. But I'm going to try to take you through the high level, because a lot of people don't understand, if we're not a search firm, what the heck do we do? Well, first know that you will always have a professional senior advisor as your guide, walking you through the entire process, holding your hand every step of the way. In the beginning, there are going to be 2 of us facilitating that definition phase for you. One of them is going to be that consistent coach that's with you through your whole journey. And in the job scorecard phase, this is going to be an important one for you to click on and look at the details. 2 of us will facilitate it with your stakeholders of the job. This is really key. It's not just taking an existing job description and jerry-rigging it into the format of a job description. One of the greatest values is getting buy-in from the very people who are impacted by the job. Those people who understand how to do the job well, or those people who are impacted if the job is done poorly. By getting their input, we will make sure we account for all types of activities and tasks that need to be done by this new hire, not just from the one-dimensional perspective of the leader or the person who might have been in that job before. So we'll build out this job scorecard that gives us an idea of what they're going to be doing, their priorities, how they're going to be spending their time, and most importantly, how will we measure their success if they're doing it well? If they're doing their job well enough to keep it, how will we know? What are going to be those success factors? Once we build that out in 2 sessions that are anywhere from 90 to 120 minutes long, we then have a 3rd session where the same group of people, now that they understand what success looks like in the job, will build out the ideal human to do that job in your culture using 3 sciences. We're going to look at behaviors. Do we need an introvert or an extrovert? We're going to look at workplace motivators, what gives them gratification in their work. And this is as much about the culture and the industry as it is about the job. And the 3rd piece, what are those skills, those personal skills they need to bring with them? Things like personal accountability, goal achievement, problem solving. What are some of those things they're going to need to bring with them? Once that is complete, And again, there's an underline. You can click on that for a sample. You will be given a job profile and all the behavior-based interview questions you and your team can use in the interviewing process. So it does take a lot for everybody to come together for 3 sessions where you're all there virtually, or one longer one if you're all together. But once that's done, then it becomes pretty obvious how much hard skills do we need, how much education does somebody need in this role, and so on. If you start with some of those hard skill education experience questions first before defining the role, frequently we find organizations will overinflate what they need because they have no other way of differentiating a successful candidate from another. You'll understand more once you build out that scorecard with your team. Once the person comes on board, everybody else who has helped contribute to defining this role is now contributing to that individual's success. They're so fired up to have somebody they know is going to be a qualified candidate in that role. It makes them exponentially more successful when they are going to have that individual in there. So once we've gone through the definition phase, now we move on to the screening phase. In the screening phase, you want to start with the resumes that you're going to be getting in. Again, in each of these sections, you are going to have instructional video in how to do each piece of the entire process, plus you're going to have your very own coach holding your hand all the way through it, making sure it's being tailored and customized to your specific job and organization. When you are building out the job scorecard, you're going to have a video on how to do this. You're going to be given 3 samples, but most importantly, you're going to be taught how to tailor that posting to the person you're looking to acquire, not the job they're going to do. So when you post it on LinkedIn or Indeed or any of the other job sites, it will lure the right human to the role because it resonates with who and what they are. Once they send you their resume, then you can certainly send them a copy of the job scorecard to help them understand specifically what they're going to be doing, how they're going to be spending their time, and that they're going to be held accountable for it. Once you get through those and you get that in, we coach you through with video and coaching how to conduct the phone screens. There's also a core values email exercise that allows us to take your core values and make sure we're screening the candidates against your culture before anybody even bothers coming in for an interview. It's kind of magical. It's many of our clients' favorite steps. It's simple in that it basically says, here are our core values. They're important to us. Please describe a specific situation in which you've demonstrated these core values in your professional life. You're thinking, get out of here, Cindy. You're giving them the answers. How hard can this be? Oh, let me tell you. Many people who can't internalize your core values will speak in generalities. They'll talk about philosophically what they believe. They won't be able to cite a specific. But if it's somebody who just bleeds your core values, man, they have these examples all the time. They can't wait to tell you what those examples are. So if somebody is talking in generalities, if they can't get their point across in an email, there's no sense even bringing them in for an interview because it will end poorly. They will dilute your culture like crazy. And we know those organizations who hire exclusively for hard skills will fire for soft skills every single time. Once we get through that, then you're going to invite people in for the first interview. In this case, you're provided 2 videos, one in how to prepare for the interview, secondly, how to conduct the interview. And anybody who's going to participate in your interviewing process, I'm a fan of panel interviews or sequential interviews, anybody involved on your team should watch both of those videos so they're prepared when they get in there. Then we'll move on to the analyze phase. In the analyze phase, if somebody's made it this far through your process, that's when we're going to ask them to take the assessments. And you'll notice as you look at the process map, the first 3 assessments that are listed in the analyze phase match the ones that we did in building the avatar. But we also add a critical thinking test. So think as the first 3 sciences, the trimetrics, as telling us how many lanes on the expressway are open, and the critical thinking test is telling us what the speed limit is. It's one thing to have 6 lanes open, but if you're driving a Yugo and you can only go 30 miles an hour, this is not going to be great in a leadership role. Then once you have those assessments in and you have some of the other information from your interview, That's when we recommend you do performance checks. These are like reference checks on steroids. You're basically taking the interview questions we provided earlier, and you're going to put a slight twist on them in order to do the performance checks. You will get people to tell you things like you're wearing a priest's collar in a confessional. But we will teach you how, again in video, how to position it so that people will tell you all these things. And then you're prepared for your secondary and tertiary interviews. We don't want you going into that secondary interview until you've done those reference checks, exploring the gaps. We're using 4 sciences in those assessments. Nobody can be perfect. The idea of an assessment is to figure out where you need to have future conversation to decide if you can build a workaround, if this person has some self-awareness, or if this is going to be a deal breaker. So once you understand where the gaps are, then you explore them in the performance checks. Then finally you can go and you can really dive deeply into them in the secondary interviews. Once we get through the analyze phase and you're ready to make this hire, then we get into the accelerate phase. In the accelerate phase, you have made the hire. This person is on board, and now you need to make sure that they are ready to rock and roll. So the first thing that we're going to do is, again, make sure that the leader is debriefed on their leadership style and is clear about things that they should be careful of, things that they should leverage as they are bringing this new hire on board. The new hire is then debriefed. We take their assessments, blow them up into a coaching report. We sit down with them in about an hour-and-a-half session, and we let the cat out of the bag. We tell them, we know you're not perfect, and that's okay, but here's where you're going to have to commit to some development, and here's how it fits within the job that you're going to need to do. Then we have a joint session with the leader and their new hire to discuss their behaviors and their workplace motivators so they understand how to leverage each other's strengths, how to communicate best with each other, and how to avoid landmines. And then finally, the last step, you're going to want to click on that underline in Advisor First Quarter Coaching because you're going to see a great sample. It takes the job scorecard and turns it into the performance acceleration tracker. It's the same thing as the job scorecard with all of the activities listed in the 3 to 5 categories on the left, the percentage of time, the priorities, and those success factors. But then it has another column to decide if we're on track or off track, yes, incomplete, or no. And a side column of that for notes to take. So it gives you an opportunity to let your new hire understand if they're on track or off track and where they need to shore themselves back up. It also gives you an idea if there are certain areas in which they're going to need some additional development in order to be successful. So if you're tired of dealing with just a search firm or just internal resources for getting this done, most internal resources are very talented, but they're typically way overworked. Others might be open to all the hiring hacks that we can teach them through the hiring process coach and guide them to make sure that they're leading you and making the right decision. So you're probably wondering about price. If you have a one incumbent job, one person for one job, it's generally going to cost you anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000. Generally, the definition phase takes about 5 to 6 hours with your stakeholder team, and to get from the definition phase to job offer is anywhere between 2 weeks and about 3 months. So if you want to talk further and understand a little bit more about this process, understand answers to questions that are inevitably bopping around in your head, click that link below. Let's set up some time to talk, and I'd be happy to walk you through it.